In the city of Placerville, California, in the year 2005, a uniformed man visits the hospital claiming to be a firefighter suffering from severe back pain as a result of an injury he received while on duty. Lifting a 120-pound ladder off the back of a truck, he was given a hospital gown and treated with painkillers that were administered through an IV. While he was asleep, the Department of Forestry dispatched Captain Oldegg to the hospital to identify this man. Captain Oldegg observed his uniform and badge, which were being stored by the hospital staff, and he immediately determined that the uniform was fake. He then took note of the name that this man provided the hospital staff and went on his way without speaking directly to him. Over the following week, Oldegg followed a hunch and visited several other hospitals and pharmacies throughout 5 California counties. He learned that this man had used 38 different aliases, 13 different social security numbers, and 8 dates of birth. He would fill out workers' comp forms using these aliases, claiming that he was a firefighter who was hurt on duty, which would get him free painkillers. The Northern California Fraud Investigators Association determined that this scheme allowed him access to over $200,000 worth of medication and medical assistance. During another visit at the Placerville Hospital, officers were called and he was arrested and escorted back to the police station where he took part in an interrogation.
Just take a deep breath and be honest.
I know.
This is Derek Aldred. At the time of this recording, Derek was 34 years old. His LinkedIn profile would state that from 1995 to 2003, Derek had worked as a project manager and vice president for a large San Francisco company, and that he was the key sponsor for the 200th episode party for the popular TV show Baywatch. Not only that, but he also had a stunning education as he received a degree in molecular biology from the University of Minnesota in 1993. The truth is, during all of this time, Derek only had one real job, as a tow truck driver. And this job only lasted about 6 months. Shockingly, Derek opened up about having a drug addiction and even admitted to the different aliases that he would operate under.
So I'm addicted to the Vicodin and Soma. Obviously my name. And then Allred, A-L-L-R-E-D, Aldridge.
How do you spell that?
A-L-D-R-I-C-H.
What other first names would you have used?
Usually always Derek.
Okay. Any Richards?
Yeah, I think I have in the past, yeah.
You can go into a hospital and impersonating a firefighter, right? And then how would you use that to get pills? How would a person do that?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Have you ever done that?
Specifically to get pills, no.
Although Derek opened up regarding these aliases, he still denied that he used these aliases to get free medication. Oldegg then changes his approach to something known as the ego up technique. To apply said technique, the interrogator must use a flattering or somewhat in awe tone of voice, speaking highly of the suspect or his crimes, while remaining as believable as possible. This is used to provoke a sense of pride in the suspect, which can subsequently result in the suspect taking ownership of these crimes. Within seconds, this technique proves to be successful when applied to Derek.
I'm going to shake your hand. You're very good at what you do. The way you go and get drugs, you're very good. Aren't you?
Not something that, yeah.
No, aren't you very good?
Well, yeah. I've been doing it for a long time. I've represented myself as an executive, as a firefighter, as you name it.
When Derek was asked how exactly he got his hands on the 13 different social security numbers, he said,
I pull a number out of thin air.
Derek was charged with burglary, embezzlement, and making false insurance claims. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison, followed by 3 years of probation. However, he was released after serving only 18 months of this sentence. While behind bars, Captain Oldegg stated that he expects to see Derek in the system again in the future, as a con man will always be a con man, just like how a tiger will never shed its stripes. A friend of Derek stated, "If Derek ever told you that the sky was blue, you'd better go outside and check." Between the years of 2009 to 2013, police departments all over California received several reports from about 4 different women who all stated that they had gotten into a relationship with Derek after he swindled each woman into thinking that he was either a property investor, a doctor studying treatments for children with cystic fibrosis, or a big shot lawyer with his own law firm. Sometimes he would even provide these women with business cards, phone numbers, or addresses to further validate these claims. After a few months, these women would figure out that Derek had submerged them into severe debt by opening multiple credit accounts in their names, or even accessing their 401k or mortgages. One woman even claimed that Derek had sold her house and stolen her 2 dogs. Unfortunately, Derek had managed to do all of this in a very elaborate way, which made it very difficult for police to charge him with fraud or burglary. When the police could not help these women directly, one of the four, named Cindy Pardini, who had lost $250,000 to Derek, contacted the news and had several articles printed regarding her experience with Derek. This led to a growing group of victims working together to take Derek down. The next time that Derek came onto the police radar was in August of 2014. Derek was visiting the St. Paul Hotel in St. Paul, Minnesota, a high-class hotel known for providing rooms to company presidents. He approached the front desk and said that he was a doctor by the name of Derek Aldrich, and that he was visiting St. Paul to take his wife and daughter to a concert. However, the airline that he traveled with lost his luggage and he was now without a wallet. The manager at the front desk told Derek that the credit card he used to book the hotel via Hotels.com was actually declined, so he would need another credit card to check in. Derek then pleaded with the front desk and advised them that he could get a co-worker from the hospital to reach out and make the payment for him. The hotel manager then agreed and allowed Derek to check in. During the first night of his stay, the hotel manager started to receive email after email from several different doctors, all claiming to be associates of Dr. Aldrich, promising that the payment would be made promptly. On day 2, Derek called the front desk and advised them that his wife and daughter will be visiting for the night since it was the night of the concert. He then asked to upgrade his room to accommodate all 3 of them. His room was then upgraded. After charging 3 or more meals a day to his room and watching several pay-per-view movies, Derek can then be seen during his 3rd day there in the hotel business lounge using a computer. A woman named Kimberly, who he had recently gotten engaged to, and who actually was a doctor, can be seen coming into the business center approaching him, and then storming out as if the two had some sort of argument. The manager advised Derek that he had a bill totaling $1,900, and when it came time to pay, Derek had disappeared. The cops were called, and they quickly opened an investigation. They viewed the surveillance footage and the emails from Derek's self-proclaimed hospital associates, and even spoke to Kimberly about the interaction that was caught on camera. Unfortunately, it seemed that Derek may have gotten away with this con, until the very next day when Derek went into a budget hotel not far from the St. Paul Hotel. He approached the front desk and told them that his name was Dr. Aldrich, and he repeated the exact same story regarding his luggage and wallet. However, Derek was unaware that the owner of this hotel was close friends with the owner of the St. Paul Hotel. So before the owner let Derek check in, he placed a call to the other owner and verified that Derek was in fact the same con man. He then called the police. Derek was quickly arrested and taken to the police department for an interview.
You're not a doctor.
No.
However, you purported yourself to be one. You presented yourself.
No, I didn't report myself to you. No, I didn't.
You don't know what James Reese, Dr. Reese,
No.
Chief of Cardiovascular Surgery,
No.
University of Hawaii?
No.
Why were they in email with St. Paul Hotel saying that they would pay your bill?
I don't know. Maybe ask Kim about that. Kim's the doctor, not me.
It doesn't mention Kim at all.
Yeah.
It mentions a Dr. Aldrich.
The officers were prepared to file charges against Derek, but before doing so, they decided to confirm with Kim that she did not have any colleagues in Hawaii that would be reaching out to the hotel for Derek. Kim firmly denied this possibility, before explaining that she believed Derek was actually a swindler, one that she had recently gotten engaged to before realizing that he was actually destroying her credit and digging her deeper and deeper into debt.
Why don't you tell me how all this transpired and what occurred and how it affected you and what your losses were?
My losses, my whole life. Ruined all my credit. And then he hid it from me, got into my email accounts, intercepted emails so that I wouldn't know. He blocked calls from my parents so that my parents couldn't get in touch with me and tell me what was going on.
So did you give him the card to use to pay for things?
No, not my credit card. What he did with my credit card is I found he stole it out of my purse, made a copy on his phone, it's actually app, and was using my credit card.
At this point, Derek was not charged for stealing from Kim, but he was charged with theft by swindle for stealing from the hotel. When Cindy Pardini caught news of this arrest, she quickly contacted the St. Paul District Attorney's Office. She advised them that Derek was very sneaky and to not allow him out of custody while he awaited trial. The prosecutor agreed. However, the judge did not, and Derek was allowed out on bail. Derek then skipped bail and seemingly disappeared again. In September of 2014, a woman named Joanne had called the police and reported Derek for opening a $20,000 line of credit in her name and spending $14,000 from the account and then vanishing. Officer Meskin was the one who took this report and advised Joanne to call the creditor and reopen the account so that the police can track Derek's movements. Within hours, Derek used the card again to purchase a train ticket which departed from Union Station in St. Paul at 6:30 a.m. the following morning. Several officers went undercover and monitored each and every access platform to board the train, but Derek did not show up, evading police once again. 3 days later, the card was used again, this time to purchase a train ticket to Portland. Derek had already used the ticket and had boarded the train immediately after purchasing, so Officer Meskin had to act fast and contacted the U.S. Marshals in Portland. The U.S. Marshals quickly sent a team to the Portland station and arrested Derek as he was exiting the train. Officers still felt that there was little evidence to charge Derek with fraud, since they were unable to prove with absolute certainty that these women were unaware of these transactions at the time that they took place. However, they were able to charge Derek for jumping bail in St. Paul, Minnesota. He was held in police custody and swiftly tried for jumping bail and theft by swindle. He was sentenced to 15 months behind bars. About 1 year later, Derek was free again, and in August of 2016, Cindy received an email from another victim named Missy saying, "Derek is back in action." This time, Derek was claiming to be a Navy SEAL by the name of Richie Peterson. In the months that he dated Missy, she felt that the two fell in love, especially after he bought her an expensive boat. She also said that he was constantly in and out of the hospital due to his war injuries and heart condition. During one of his hospital stays, Missy looked at the ID in his wallet and found that his real name was Derek Aldred. She then Googled his name and found Cindy's news articles. She also found 2 credit cards inside his wallet that belonged to another woman named Linda. When Missy contacted Linda on Facebook, she replied 2 days later, stating that Derek was currently in her house and she didn't know what to do. She was scared and panicking. Before Missy could help her, Linda stated that Derek had asked him to drive her to the hospital again. So Linda dropped Derek at the hospital and contacted the police. When Derek arrived back at Linda's house after taking an Uber home from the hospital, police arrested him before he could enter the house. As it turns out, Derek was seeing both Missy and Linda at the exact same time, telling both of them that his name was Richie Peterson. He stole about $385,000 from Linda and had purchased the boat for Missy using that money. The police spoke to Derek regarding these claims, but ultimately allowed him to leave pending further investigation. As the following months came and went, Derek moved from state to state and continued to swindle more women using the same formula. These relationships would run shorter and shorter, and he was even reported to the NCIS by one of his victims' father, after the father concluded that Derek was posing as a Navy SEAL and using a Navy uniform to gain free access to baseball games while he took his daughter on dates. Another victim named Dory determined that Derek was a con man after finding out that he had opened a line of credit for $20,000 in her name and had already withdrawn $19,000 from it. She refrained from telling Derek that she was aware of his con and decided to stay at her brother's house. When she knew that Derek was not at her home, which he was currently living, Dory returned to the house and packed up all of Derek's uniforms, badges, ID cards, mail, and paperwork pertaining to the aliases that he had created. Dory then reported Derek to the police and delivered all of these items to the police station. One of the badges that Derek had been using was such a well-made counterfeit that officers had to reach out to the Navy to determine its validity. The Navy also felt that this counterfeit was far better than any that they had ever seen. The NCIS was now investigating Derek for impersonating a military officer. More specifically, something known as stolen valor. To expedite this process, they wanted to obtain a warrant to take him into custody and question him, so they finally decided to charge him with the illegal use of somebody else's credit card. At this time, another woman named Tracy contacted Cindy and let her know that she was currently dating Derek and that he was in Dallas, Texas. She also stated that Derek was now frequently carrying a firearm. Cindy reported this to the police, and the police contacted Tracy directly. Officers asked Tracy to arrange a meeting with Derek and to pretend that everything was completely fine. So she did just that. During the conversation between Tracy and Derek, Derek went on to explain that he was at the hospital for the night, having a heart procedure done, and Tracy told him that she would pick him up the next morning. Using this information, the officers planned a sting to arrest Derek at the hospital. Unfortunately, the night before the sting was planned, a news outlet caught wind of Derek's story and broadcasted a warning to the public.
Women who meet this man online say they're left with empty promises and empty wallets.
Well, he is claimed to be a Navy SEAL, a doctor, and a lawyer. But the many women who've encountered Derek Aldred say he's nothing but a phony.
Someone who leaves behind broken promises and empty bank accounts.
This caused stress among the investigation team, as they felt that Derek would likely be aware of the report and avoid Tracy the next morning. Regardless, the officers went forward with the sting and had about 30 undercover officers walking the halls of the hospital looking for Derek. Derek was nowhere in sight. Then Tracy's phone rang. It was Derek. Derek explained that he was actually at the heart specialist, not at the hospital. So Tracy told Derek that she would meet him there instead. Tracy and the officers headed to that clinic, and Derek Aldred was arrested as he sat in a fancy suit while he waited in the clinic's waiting room. He did not seem surprised by the arrest. Derek was then escorted back to the police station, where he was questioned regarding the claims of stolen valor and the fraud allegations.
Jeremy,
Hey, Jeremy.
with NCIS.
Okay.
And I'm Mike.
Hey, Mike.
What do you do for a living?
Sales most of my life.
Okay. And what was your purpose for coming to Texas?
Just kind of get away and I don't know, I strike that. I'd lived here in the 90s too, 97, 98.
Okay. Were you planning on seeking employment here? I mean,
Yeah.
Doing what?
Didn't really give it much thought.
Since there was no evidence that Derek was carrying a firearm aside from Tracy's statement, the investigators decided to confront him about that first, likely with the hopes that he might slip up and incriminate himself.
Here's the deal. You're a convicted felon. Is that correct?
Yes.
It's convicted. And you acknowledge that you're not allowed to have firearms.
And I don't.
Never possessed a firearm in the last 2 months.
No.
Never carried a firearm for 2 months.
No.
Never had one. Never had it. Were you driving around with one in the car?
I don't believe so. I hope not.
I hope not. I was hoping. I mean, I thought we were on the right path in terms of some of the honesty, but now it's just going back to.
Guys, I just told you. I told you the truth.
It's time that you are honest with yourself and you're honest with us.
Derek took this opportunity to be truthful and decided to spin the narrative. He decided to tell a story about the women who have banded together to bring him down and ruin his reputation. He claimed that any criminal accusations against him were actually the result of a broken heart, and that he himself had done nothing wrong.
There was a warrant out for my arrest in the colony.
Okay.
I actually saw that at 7 o'clock news this morning.
Okay.
When things went south, I mean, she was bitter and she was upset and hurt, probably a little scornful, and wanted revenge or whatever you want to call it.
Before he could scrutinize every accusation that each woman made against him, the NCIS officers decided to confront him with the charge that was their main focus: stolen valor.
And let me ask you, have you ever served in the military?
No.
Never served in the military?
No.
Have you ever been in law enforcement before?
No.
Fireman?
No.
Do you wear uniforms of military personnel?
No, I don't.
Never.
I have in the past, but I mean,
Like by in the past, last week?
No,
or?
not last week, not last month, not last year.
Unfortunately for Derek, Dory had snapped a picture of him in uniform.
I never wore this in public anywhere, and that's I don't even know how that was taken. That's crazy.
So when do you think that was taken?
I'm not quite sure.
Have you ever heard of the term stolen valor?
I have. Up until recently, I hadn't.
Have you ever had any military IDs, like in your possession or anything like that?
Military IDs? No.
Okay. So, not even fake, counterfeit, anything like that?
I don't think so, no. I can tell you, beyond the shadow of a doubt, I've never gone out in public and, gotten free stuff or free drinks or free dinners or
Tickets to baseball games?
No, nothing. Never.
A key component that can make or break a stolen valor charge is the intent to use these false claims regarding past or present military service as a tool for personal gain. Personal gain can be anything from respect or special treatment from a person in power to receiving discounted or free products. Derek, however, would use something known as a common ID card to swindle his way into baseball games, as seen in this surveillance video. Unfortunately for Derek, Officer Mike had the exact ID card that he had been using in his possession, as provided by Dory.
You had these credentials here, and you had this Navy.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a common access card?
You can buy them off of eBay.
Yeah. Is that where you got these from?
That's where I got that, yeah.
And what were you going to do with these here?
Nothing. I haven't done anything with them.
clearly you are showing ID and insisting that you're military and gaining something which is the equivalent of stolen valor.
I never showed ID.
I think in the last 20 minutes, you have lied to our face about 50 times. Like, you've been lying to all of these people.
Guys, I just told you, I told you the truth.
You just say, I didn't do it, that didn't happen.
But I haven't
when
done
it's
that.
When it's clear, why would all of these people say this? Then there is evidence of it happening. Then there's videos and pictures of you doing it.
Realizing that he's in hot water, Derek takes the investigators down memory lane and attempts to change the topic. While doing so, he also attempts to paint himself as a changed man caught in an unfortunate misunderstanding.
I had a lot of stuff happen in California, and back in early 2000s. I went to prison in California. Went to prison in Minnesota. Certainly wasn't proud of it. I hadn't been back with a police car till I was 35 years old. Never got in trouble, and I went off the deep end real quick and just kind of kept going off, I guess.
Were you ever addicted to any drugs?
Yeah, that's essentially what I went to prison for. I was going around and getting pills and doing dope, smoking heroin, and I got hooked, got in a lot of trouble. I mean, the wheels fell off real quick. Never been the same since. So went to the jail, got out, and thought, you know what, fresh start. I'm going to be good now, and not going to, do the drug thing anymore, which I didn't. But I learned real quick that, wow, no second chances for stuff like that. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I mean, I'm stupid, but I'm not really stupid. I mean, there's, I'm probably, it's just, it's one of those things. It's a mess. I mean, I don't really know at this point how I can go about.
So you're describing this as a mess, okay?
It's my own mess. I mean, no one else created it.
Although Derek seemed to be a pathological liar that presented symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder, he finally said one thing that was very true. If this was a mess, it was one that he created all on his own. Derek was then charged with stolen valor and using a stolen credit card. But before he could be escorted to a holding cell, he had to ask the officers one more question.
In the stuff you took out of my pocket, there's my Mentos bottle. I have my, there's nitro in there. Can I please have one of those?
You need a nitro?
Yeah.
Stand by. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Derek did not get his nitro. He was then taken to a cell where he awaited his court proceedings. The prosecutor working the case reviewed all of the files and reports that seemed to follow Derek everywhere he went. They also spoke with the 27 different women that Derek had met on several different dating sites. Each one of these women had been a victim of Derek's cons, and some have never been able to fully recover from them. The prosecutor also learned that Derek swindled over $2.5 million throughout the course of his criminal career. Based on these findings, Derek's charges were upgraded. The two initial charges were dropped as they did not carry a prison term that was lengthy enough to fit the crimes. So instead, Derek was offered a plea deal. As long as he pled guilty to 2 counts of identity theft and 1 count of mail fraud, he would receive a sentence of 24 years. This was likely in his best interest, as the prosecutor could have included 7 other counts of identity theft. So Derek did exactly that, and on December 21st, 2017, Derek's plea deal was accepted by the judge, and Derek was sentenced to 24 years behind bars, and ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $254,892.41.
The last time we saw Derek Aldred, he was being led away to serve 24 years in federal prison.
Finally, justice. We were all heard.
Justice for the women across the country who told KARE 11 they'd been conned by Aldred after meeting him online. Aldred had posed as a Navy SEAL.
She wore these all the time.
A lawyer, a doctor, a Navy pilot, leaving a trail of broken hearts and empty bank accounts in his wake.
But he's destroying lives.
So now with lots of time in prison to think, what does Aldred have to say about the crimes?
I'm not trying to justify my behavior. My behavior was, I was a horrible boyfriend. Absolutely horrible. Destroying someone's life, I think, is a bit exaggerated.
A horrible boyfriend? Keep in mind, more than a dozen women testified in court, some saying Aldred ruined their businesses, destroyed their reputation, even caused them to lose their homes. Navy investigators built their case against the phony war hero, and a federal judge finally put a stop to the scam.
Justice.
So what about all those fake identities? How did Aldred keep them straight?
It's impossible to keep straight, particularly when I was running from the courts or, running from the United States Marshals. I mean, it was tough to keep track of who I was saying, where I was and what I was doing and who I was. It's overwhelming.